ability. What we think about bees depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
Welcome. We're going to be joined by Alex Newman, who is in Brazil at COP30. It's the big climate change conference. Apparently, as I told you guys yesterday, it got so hot there. The climate change was so hot, there was fires breaking out. And that's going to happen worldwide, folks. If we don't get this climate change, this man-made, it's all man's fault. It's all capitalism's fault. If we don't get this man-made, catastrophic global warming under control, we're going to see spontaneous combustible fires all over the world. And no one will be to blame but the free market system. Now, that's all tongue-in-cheek, but that's the craziness, folks. That's the craziness of these folks. And remember, it wasn't too many years ago, wasn't it Al Gore telling us about an ice age? Wasn't it back in the 70s, they were telling us that the sea level was rising, the ice caps were melting, the sea was rising, and the water by now would be on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. I don't know why they choose to use the environment as the tipping point for their globalism. I've said before, it seems to me it'd be much easier to say we're in an inflationary cycle. All of the countries of the world are basically underwater. They're debtor-based nations. They have reached the end of this debt-based system. We've got wars going on. They could come up with all kinds of things to say we need to flip to some kind of stabilizing global currency and agree to a global plan. I mean, there are a lot of legitimate crises that are happening. Of course, they're all man-made as well. Global warming isn't a man-made catastrophe. There is man-made global warming. I mean, you have global hotspots in the world when you build cities with concrete and steel and windows and the sun reflecting. You get a island heat effect, but it's not apocalyptic. It's not apocalyptic. But most of the problems we have in the world are legitimately manufactured, like the debt crisis. I don't know why they don't use the real crises that they've created to scare people into the fact you're going to lose your house. You're going to lose everything, your pensions, your retirement, all the pensions you guys are holding in Illinois and all these other states that are upside down. Here's how we fix the problem. And you herd people into that like cattle out of the idea of self-preservation. I don't know why they don't use more real legitimate things instead of climate change, unless it has to do with the fact that it all ties back to pantheism, the worship of God. All pantheism, all is God. Panentheism, God is in all. Romans 1 says they worship the creation rather than the creator who's blessed forevermore. Romans 1 also says when God gives over a people, they not only become involved in pagan spirituality, the worship of nature, but they become fools, vain, useless, futile in their thinking. I don't know. I'd like to ask Alex Newman why they don't pick more real crises versus manufacturing these fake ones. And where was he yesterday when the legit fires broke out? And we do hope nobody was harmed, of course. He joins us now from Brazil. Alex, welcome back. Thank you for being with us from Brazil.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me, Brandon.
Let's go to the fire. Hopefully no one was injured. What happened when that fire broke out? We saw it all over social media.
Yeah, so apparently they have 12 or 13 people that they treated for smoke inhalation, but it seems like everybody's pretty much okay. We were actually standing just outside of where that happened. One of my colleagues was interviewing a guy who had made a grotesque statue of Donald Trump, pictured as a morbidly obese, naked individual riding on the shoulders of a skeletal worker, child, small person. The image was called King of Injustice. So we're sitting out there talking to this Danish artist who the UN allowed to come in with this grotesque figurine, and suddenly behind us, black clouds over the COP conference. Very symbolic, and then suddenly flames and ashes falling on us. And right after that, a large number of people, thousands and thousands of people flooding out the front door, some calm, some hysterical. Now, today they let us back in. We've learned a little bit more. Apparently there was some sort of electrical issue at the East Africa booth. So they've closed off a big part of the conference. They've shut down all they call them country booths, but what they mean is government booths. And I guess they're being much more careful now. They're putting fire extinguishers all over the place. They've got more firemen than you've ever seen in your life posted all over the place because, it's Brazil. I've spent many years living here. If you know anything about Brazil, you know that it's just a little bit different than the United States. So,
yeah. Well, be careful because we want you to come home, not end up in a cell, so we won't go too deep into that. Now, what do you make of my opening monologue that why don't they pick a legitimate crisis? There are so many of them around the globe right now, including, as I said, the collapse of currencies, the debt of many nations, to say, hey, we've past generations have made huge mistakes in quantitative easing and expansion of the money supplies and inflation and Keynesian economics, and everybody's going to lose everything unless we all come together and agree to some kind of global plan, global system. We'll grab up the lands in various nations, like in America, and we'll make that a hard asset we tie digital currency to. And this way, everybody can be saved. But we've got to come together on certain global concerns and deals that preserve at least your ability to live, to have your pension. Why don't they take some legitimate crises? Why do they have to manufacture these, the sky is falling, we're all going to burn up?
Well, I think if you really spend some time thinking about the climate change hoax, from a totalitarian perspective, if you wanted to build a global totalitarian political, economic, and religious system, there's almost nothing better that you could come up with. And there's several reasons why. First of all, what they're arguing is that human emissions of carbon dioxide are the problem. Of course, every single thing that we do, as you know, Brandon, results in CO2 emissions. Literally, you exhale 2 pounds of CO2 every single day of your life. When you die, your body decomposes, and of course, that releases CO2. And so this is a challenge, supposedly, a crisis, supposedly, that transcends borders. Right? There's nothing that one single government or even some governments together could do if you don't bring the entire world under control. It also implicates every single human activity. There's nothing you do, Brandon, that doesn't produce CO2 emissions. And so if CO2 is pollution, if it needs to be taxed and regulated by global authorities, because, of course, it transcends borders, there is no sphere of human activity or life that is outside the purview of these totalitarians. Everything produces CO2, and they have publicly said that their agenda is to achieve net zero. So this is a battle that can never be won unless you literally remove every single person in the world, right? Unless every single person on the planet is killed or dies, there can never truly be zero carbon dioxide emissions. Even one last Indian in the Amazon rainforest breathing is going to release some CO2, 2 pounds per day on average. And so this is a battle that can never be won. Right? It's not like a debt challenge that, you restructure the debt, you come up with a new system, you scam everybody out of their pensions, and then the scam is over. This is a perpetual scam that never ends. It can never be won. It's not like World War II. Okay, we defeated the Nazis, and it's over. Now we can get back to our life. This is a scam that never ends. It implicates every single thing that every human being on the planet does, and it is the best pretext that I think they could come up with to justify totalitarian international controls over all economic activity, the smashing of national sovereignty, and ultimately the co-opting of every religious movement, or we might say false religious movement, in the world. And we're watching all of that taking place right here in Belém, Brazil.
So you can also then set up a global system where you got to buy tax credits or carbon credits, which, of course, I know Bill Gates and many have been working on. So it's, again, a kind of a global Federal Reserve system that is able to financially rape the people. Now you do it on a global scale, which impoverishes people but enriches a few, a small power elite. So that's part of the goal as well, right?
Of course, yeah, and you see that very clearly. Everybody that's here is somehow grifting. Even the oil companies, right? The oil companies are supposed to be public enemy. I guess Trump is public enemy number one at the moment, but the oil companies are supposed to be the big, bad, evil doers. The first thing we saw when we got off the airplane in Beijing was a big, giant billboard from an oil company bragging about how they were now part of the climate solutions by using this carbon capture storage. So the banks are making a fortune off of this grift. The energy companies, the oil companies are making a fortune off of this grift. The endless parade of rent-a-mobs around here, all these fake green groups grifting off of the taxpayer. Everybody is making a fortune off of this scam, except, of course, the taxpayers and the people who are now enduring far higher energy costs. Obviously, some people are benefiting more than others at this conference, right? The Chi-Coms are laughing all the way to the bank as they tell Western governments they need to cut their carbon emissions while they and their allies continue to build coal-fired power plants and extract as much fossil fuels as they like. But the globalist evildoers are masters at setting up the incentive structure so that they can get everybody on board somehow just pursuing their own rational self-interest. And this COP conference is really a perfect example of that. You've got every key player profiting from the grift somehow, and when your job depends on something, when your livelihood, your income depends on something, it's much harder to look at it objectively and say, maybe CO2 being pollution is actually a big scam. So they're very good at this. They've been doing it for a long time. This is, of course, the 30th of these things, and they make more progress every year.
And interesting, because Tom DeWeese has talked about this money loop. If you want to get the money, you have to write papers. Your think tank has to put out articles and papers with this specific philosophy and idea being promoted, or no money. So when you talk about all the grifting, all the money, again, it goes to push this agenda, you get money. So they're raping the treasury of these nations to enrich their NGOs or non-government organizations and push this same thing. And I also remember Tom DeWeese saying the climate's a perfect thing too, because you have every stream, every river, every creek runs to the ocean. So you can take all of the land, tie it back to the oceans, and thus the environment, because of the fact that you have rivers, creeks, and streams running all over the nation and touching land. And thus now you can say, once we talk about international rules or laws or governance related to the climate and the oceans, then you tie it to the streams, the rivers, and the creeks that run all over the United States of America tied to those oceans. So now you can encompass everybody's private property, right?
And that's exactly what the EPA did. They expanded the Clean Waters Act. They expanded the definition of waters of the United States to include basically every puddle in the country, every mud hole that somehow, someday might somehow connect to a creek that connects to a river that connects to something that eventually drains out into the ocean. So it's another really good example of that. But here we're talking about on an international scale. This whole idea that CO2 is pollution, CO2 is going into the atmosphere. We all share the atmosphere in common. And so the only solution then is for a global authoritarian government to come in and save us from this terrible, terrible pollution, which, of course, is produced every time you do anything, every time a child is born, every time somebody takes a breath. It's really breathtaking in scope.
When I come back from the break, I'd like to talk about the meetings going on at the UN for a global tax, setting up a global tax. Boy, that's what we all need, right? Is to pay more taxes, particularly to a corrupt organization like the United Nations, filled with Marxists and Islamists. We'll talk to reporter, journalist, author Alex Newman, who's on the ground in Brazil at the COP30 conference put on by the United Nations. And then I want to ask him, when he walks around, is he recognized? Do any of the UN representatives have anything to say to him? Do they try to convince him of the merits of their ideas? We'll be right back with Alex Newman here on Worldview Radio.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio. Our website, worldviewradio.com. All right, Alex Newman is on the ground in Brazil, joining us live. His website is libertysentinel.org, libertysentinel.org. We also carry his broadcast here on the weekends on Worldview Tube. Alex, now, as you walk around, you go to so many of these conferences all over the world. As you walk around, do you see UN representatives that recognize you? Do you go up and visit with some of them that you've talked with before? Do they remember you? And do any of them try to convince you, hey, Alex, here's the merit of our ideas, but we really wish you'd get on board with us? Do you have any arm twisting that takes place there?
Yeah, it's interesting, Brandon. We do have a handful of people that we see every year. Some of them we become friendly with, even though they know we don't agree. But overwhelmingly here, when people find out you are not drinking the Kool-Aid, they become very, very hostile. It's not just like, oh, you disagree with us. Well, let us talk to you and explain to you why we're right. It's, oh, my goodness, you're an evil heretic. How dare you be part of the destruction of the world? We cannot talk to you. And so word gets out very quickly. I'll give you an example. Just a few days ago, we went up to a guy purporting to represent Los Angeles. I guess he's one of the senior staffers for one of their, I think they call them supervisors in L.A. County. And we asked him if he'd be willing to do an interview with us. He said, well, I got to go through protocol. Give me your business card, and I'm going to go talk to the person who handles that for me. It was somebody at the Climate Brief. They're trying to come up with a carbon accounting system for the world. And when they found out who we were, that we were here with the New American magazine, and that the New American has not generally embraced global warming hysteria, not only did he refuse to interview with us, he went to the different events where Americans were speaking and warned them all not to talk to us. And this is very common. A couple years ago, there's a group that's very active here. It's called the Climate Action Network International, CAN International. Very well funded. And Congress found out that they were getting money from Gazprom, the state-owned Russian oil company. Long story short, there was a shell company in Bermuda called Klein Limited. The Russian government was passing money through there to a foundation in the United States called Sea Change, and then Sea Change was distributing it to all these green groups demanding the destruction of America's energy infrastructure. And so we asked this guy about this Russian money. And he starts freaking out, and he says, this guy's a climate denier. Nobody talked to him. And the whole room, oh, he's a climate denier. We got it all on tape. And so you're treated not like a pariah, but like some sort of monster just because you have some questions, just because you don't agree with the premise that carbon dioxide is dangerous pollution. And so we do have a lot of people who recognize us. We've, out of the 60,000 plus who are here, me and my team are among just a tiny handful of people who are not drinking the Kool-Aid. And I mean that literally. You could probably count on one hand the number of people in this conference who openly say that they do not believe that human emissions of CO2 are a problem. And so, yes, we become recognizable. And they put a big target on our backs, Brandon. At one of the big outcomes of this UN Climate Summit, you had a bunch of governments get together and they signed the agreement on squelching misinformation and disinformation. And the lady who's now leading up this effort, she's a UN official named Charlotte Scabin or something like that. We've got a lot of video of her from her different sessions that she's given here. She says it's not just the climate deniers. It's not just the people who question the climate science now that are a problem that need to be suppressed and silenced. And she talks like this, right? I'm not exaggerating. She says now we got to go after even the people who question the climate solutions, because they're standing in the way of saving the world through climate action. So now even some of the people in this conference who are true believers, fellow travelers, now they're going to find themselves in the crosshairs because they wonder about whether this or that supposed solution is really the best way forward. So the totalitarianism is getting increasingly serious, and it's very strange for me, Brandon. I'm sure you're the same way. You know, if some fake left-wing news outlet came up and asked me to explain my views on something, I'd be very happy to do it because I suspect that I'm correct and that they're incorrect. So I'd be very happy to try to articulate that. But it's very different here. They treat you worse than a leper as soon as they find out you're not part of the cult.
I was showing yesterday a website where there's regular meetings now on global tax, a UN global tax. But isn't that really what the Paris Agreement, a lot of these things are global tax? Talk to us about the various forms of global tax. And Donald Trump, I guess, assumes we're out of this Paris Agreement, but we're really not. So anything they do there related to the Paris Agreement will be still applying to America. The United States is still under part of this climate agenda with the UN because, as I understand from some of your other reporting I've seen, Donald Trump, the president, thinks he's pulled out of this, but he hasn't, correct?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on. We've been in communication with the State Department, so I don't know exactly what their thinking is yet. I'm trying to figure out. I've been in communication with some of the people who are advising Donald Trump on these issues, but here's a rough outline of the problem, Brandon. When Trump took over January 20th of 2025, he signed an executive order getting us out of the Paris Agreement and also a whole bunch of other UN climate agreements. But he didn't at all even mention the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is the underlying treaty that all these subsequent agreements are built on. So the Paris Agreement is not actually a treaty. It was never ratified by the U.S. Senate. It was just considered an addendum to the underlying treaty, the UNFCCC, which was signed in 1992 by George H.W. Bush and then supposedly ratified by the Senate. So we are still in the UNFCCC. I would argue that it's an unconstitutional treaty. The federal government cannot grant itself new powers by signing a treaty with the UN or with foreign governments. But the way these totalitarians, advocates of international law, look at it, the Senate ratified it, therefore it is binding on the United States. And the way they treat these subsequent agreements, every year at these COPs, they come up with a new and supposedly improved agreement. They just tack it on to the end of the UNFCCC. So we're still part of that, right? We are still part of this process. The United States is still subject, under the view of these international law people, to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change unless and until we formally withdraw. Trump could do that, and I wish he would do that. Very smart people are encouraging him to do that, and I've spoken with high officials in the EPA and in the State Department who believe that's the way forward. For whatever reason, he has not. And so that leaves us in an interesting position, because the way they passed these addendums, the addenda to the original UNFCCC, is by consensus. So all the governments get together, and as long as no government formally files an objection and says we reject this agreement, they consider it adopted. Well, Trump did not send anybody here. We confirmed that. The State Department told us they didn't send one single person. They said this conference is dedicated to bankrupting the United States. We did not authorize any representative to go down there. And yeah, I respect that. I think that's a valid approach. But what they're talking about this openly, Brandon. You won't hear about it in the fake American media, but they're talking about this openly here. Hey, it's great that Trump didn't send anybody. Now we can do a really ambitious agreement, and the United States won't be here to object to the consensus. So we'll get it passed, and then when Trump is gone in 3.5 years, the next president will have to enforce it. So that's their approach right now. You asked about the global taxes. That's the big price. Earlier this year, they actually voted at a meeting in London, the International Maritime Organization, which is a specialized UN agency, to approve the first ever global tax on humanity in the form of a tax on emissions coming from international shipping. Basically, if you operate an international ship that ships goods and services across borders, you would pay the UN directly a carbon tax for your emissions. Now, the Trump administration pushed back hard. They said this was a wealth transfer, wealth redistribution scheme masquerading as an environmental policy, and if you do it, we're going to hold you accountable. There are going to be sanctions. We are not going to pay it, and you guys can go kick rocks. And so for now, they're putting this on ice. But I guarantee you, in 3.5 years, they will be right back at it. And every time they meet together, they make a little more progress laying the groundwork for the first ever international tax. And once they get an international tax, Brandon, I know I don't need to tell you, it's all over, right? There will be nothing holding them back. They'll be able to hire as many soldiers and police and courts and propagandists and marketing companies and publicists and PR firms. It will be impossible to stop. It will become its own true global government, completely beyond the reach of voters.
I'm showing to the TV audience, I'll explain it for the radio audience, a website. It is from the meeting in Kenya, November 18th, 2025. the third session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to develop a UN Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation. Delegates working to develop a UN Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation will discuss proposals for a draft structure for the Framework Convention, a protocol on taxation of income derived from the provision of cross-border services, and a provision on prevention and resolution of tax disputes. So, of course, that's where it's going to start. Do you know anything about this meeting that took place November 18th, 2025 in Kenya?
I do, yes. I'm following this as well, and I've been following it for many years, Brandon. In fact, for many years, I was the only American journalist who was following this process. It's very far along now, and it's the same with the climate thing. You know, they grab as much territory as they can with each subsequent meeting, and then they wait, and then they grab more territory the next time they meet, and that's what they're doing here. Now, they're framing this as tax cooperation, and the way they market this to the public is, hey, you have an American company that sets up a subsidiary in the Netherlands, which has a lower corporate tax rate, and then they route their profits to the Netherlands, so they call this tax avoidance. And they're very good at conflating tax avoidance with tax evasion, which is a crime. Tax avoidance is what any sensible person does to pay the lowest rate of tax required by law. That's what all sensible people do, and we should encourage that. You know, why would you want people to pay more tax than they're legally required to pay? But then they mix that in with discussions of tax evasion, which is actually a crime, which, of course, we as Christians, we're not permitted to evade taxes. It's a criminal offense, and it's against the laws of God, so we are required to pay legally owed taxes. But what the UN and all these NGOs are doing is they're trying to set up, and they're very advanced on this, and Barack Obama helped them in a major way by passing FATCA back in 2015. That actually created the infrastructure to make this possible, where governments all automatically share information with each other on their taxpayers. And so that way, if you're paying tax in one jurisdiction but not paying enough in another jurisdiction, everybody's going to know automatically. Now, I personally don't want my personal financial data shared with hostile foreign dictatorships, some of which have it out for me, right? But this is the way that this is all going. And, of course, that's all a precursor to bringing in true international taxes. That's where this eventually ends up. They're trying all these different routes to get to global taxes. The closest route right now is the International Maritime Organization tax on shipping. That's going to be their first big direct tax on humanity. But ultimately, they plan to extract as much money as they can from us directly. And all of these meetings on tax cooperation, so-called, including this one that just took place while this week was going on, the COP was going on in Brazil, are aimed at eventually moving us toward that goal.
Have you, I know you've got a lot going on there, so you may not have seen it, but have you seen the cover of The Economist magazine this week, The World Ahead 2026? Have you seen the cover and the graphic?
I have not, actually, no.
Oh, wow. I will, we need to email it to you for you to look at, because it's The Economist magazine, and the headline is The World Ahead 2026. Alex, it has a birthday cake of America 250 right in the center, and right below that, it has two swords crossed, like the swords of Islam, like you see with all the Islamic terror groups. It has a cargo ship stacked with cargo containers with missiles coming off of the cargo containers, like the Club K cargo system that I reported in my documentary, Sabotage, in 2018. The missiles coming off the cargo ship containers are going right to the 250th birthday cake of America, and they're receiving their signal from a satellite over the Earth, which is exactly how we reported on that cargo Club K car missile system in 2018. It has tanks, it has missiles, it has pills strewn all over the globe, pills. It has syringes all over the globe. It has a man with a rocket launcher on his shoulder. It has robots. It has a lot of things. I want to get your response to that when we come back. LibertySentinel.org is his website.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System. the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Century Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Century H2O. Tap into wellness.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. I don't know if you're able to look at your email, Alex, but I just emailed you a picture of this Economist magazine with the headline, The World Ahead 2026, with all the things on there. By the way, it does have a big, toward the bottom right, as well as on the bottom left, it has what looks like melting ice. Melting ice. I don't know, again, if that's the global warming agenda being mentioned there. I don't know. But there's a lot of creepy symbolism in here. What do you know about The Economist magazine? Why do the global elite like to telegraph what's coming? And what do you make of this?
Well, The Economist magazine is probably the preeminent establishment mouthpiece. If you look, for example, at the Bilderberg summits, the most represented publication there, and by the way, the journalists are not allowed to talk about what they learned there. They're just invited there because they're part of the club. The most represented publication at the Bilderberg meetings is The Economist. Oftentimes they have 2 or even 3 people from The Economist magazine at these semi-secret gatherings of about 120 to 150 members of the global elite. So The Economist, I would argue, is the premier mouthpiece for the agenda of the global establishment. And they often try to foreshadow things that they know are coming. Back in 1988, they talked about the eventual destruction of the dollar and the emergence of a one-world currency. They had dollars burning down at the bottom and then a phoenix rising from the ashes in the form of a global currency. And so these globalists, they love images to try to represent and encapsulate what they're doing. And this one looks very significant. I've only had 30 seconds or so to examine it, so I haven't had time to go through it in depth, but it does look significant. But on that same note, Brandon, I just emailed you an image. I would encourage you to check out your email right now. This was a gift by the CCP to Brazil for the COP30. It's called the official Dragon Jaguar Spirit Guardian, and I encourage you to look at it. It's a demonic, devilish dragon with devil horns on it, holding the world in its hand. Again, official CCP gift from China to the people of Brazil. And what they say is this demonic guardian spirit, it's a merger of a dragon and a jaguar, is going to help protect the Amazon rainforest and the global environment. And it's a symbol of the cooperation between the mass murdering communist dictatorship in China, which has murdered more people than any other government in human history, and, of course, the Brazilian government, which is now firmly in the hands of a communist who actually says he is proud to be a communist. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, a longtime close ally of Fidel Castro and various narco-Marxist terrorist organizations across the hemisphere.
Well, I'm waiting on that email to come in from you there on the floor of the conference. That's interesting because while I was talking to you, as you can see, this is a very busy graphic. And while I was talking to you, I noticed something else. I did see yesterday at the top of the graphic, you do see the birthday cake of America, 250. It's being, again, shot at with missiles coming off of a cargo container ship. But behind the birthday cake, you see I guess what is kind of the revolutionary Marxist Black Panther. It's all used by the Marxist pumping fist, the fist in the air, but yet it has a handcuff around it. And the chain is going back to the 250th birthday cake of America. But behind the raised fist of solidarity of the Marxist is the American flag. So the American flag is being obscured or blocked by the raised fist that has a handcuff on it going back down to the birthday cake of America. Now, again, I don't know if they're saying that America has restrained the revolution and they're going to break free and thus overcome America and thus blocking of the flag. I have no idea. But whoever did this clearly knows the symbolism. This is not, you don't put a solidarity fist in the air covering the American flag unless you're sending some kind of symbolism. Alex?
Yeah, no, clearly, as I'm looking at this, Brandon, it's very clear that somebody put a lot of attention into every little detail of this. It's designed to kind of look random and chaotic, but every little symbol, every little character, every person, everything in that drawing was placed there very deliberately. And it's so typical of the global elitists to use visual symbolisms to kind of drop hints to the people in the know. Brandon, if you go to the NewAmerican.com, I want you to see this image because I think, and I hope you can show it to those who are watching. I know the people on the radio won't be able to see it, but those who are watching, you need to see this image. It is absolutely astounding. You can find it at thenewamerican.com. One of my colleagues, Andrew Muller, took a beautiful picture of it. You actually see the people in front kind of worshiping with their cell phones and taking selfies in front of it. It is the most grotesque figure I've ever seen.
Okay, where do I find?
I try to encapsulate the spirit here in one image. This would be it.
Okay, I think I just found it. Critics slam Chinese dragon, jaguar, guardian spirit at you in Coptic by Alex Newman. There it is. It's wow. Yep. A jaguar with horns coming out of its head. Its fangs are showing. It has its arms wrapped around the globe, and it says COP30 on it. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty demonic looking.
It is. And then around the base of the statue, you see a lot more symbolism about the supposed evils of man destroying the rainforest and this guardian jaguar dragon spirit. And I'll tell you what, the people of Brazil are horrified by this. This has become a major sticking point now. The people of Brazil are saying, no, Brazil belongs to Jesus Christ, not your demonic guardian spirit of the dragon and the jaguar. But, they don't do these things accidentally, right? When we say this is a spiritual battle, it is so clear when you come to things like this. It's so clear when you see the art, so-called, that these people use to try to show what they're doing. And to be clear, some of them, certainly the Bible talks about those who've been taken captive by Satan to do his will. Certainly there's some of that here, but I think it's very, very clear that this is not really a battle about climate change or what kind of politics or economics we're going to have. Those are manifestations of the underlying spiritual battle that we're facing here. And so much of it is based on lies, right? We know who the father of lies is. Satan is the father of lies. And so when you see whole conferences organized around lies, it just becomes so obvious what we're dealing with here. And we need Americans to understand this because, as I've explained to you before, Brandon, and I know you know, this global warming hoax is really the foundational pretext for demolishing national sovereignty, bringing in a one-world totalitarian political and economic order. And the religious angle is so clear here. The Pope just did a big video encouraging all of this. A couple years ago, they released the new and improved 10 Commandments. It's really astounding. You got all the religions of the world uniting together for saving Mother Earth, and the only ones not welcome, the only ones not represented are Bible-believing Christians, of course.
So in closing, because I know you got a busy schedule, what do you think is coming in 2026 based on, say, the world? I mean, when The Economist magazine puts this on their cover, they clearly are sending a signal. Do you think we're headed for war in 2026? What do you think is coming in 2026? And how should Christians be preparing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brandon. And you and I have talked before about the poly crisis. The World Economic Forum warned several years ago that we were headed toward a poly crisis. And I think that image that you showed on the cover of The Economist magazine is a perfect representation of that. You've got all these different mega crises hitting at the same time. War, geopolitical conflicts, drugs, all of these different things, financial problems, all hitting at the same time. And I've been saying that I thought they were going to try to unleash this during Donald Trump's term in office. Been saying that for many, many years. In fact, you and I have talked about it before right here on this program. I think they want to try to unleash unbelievable chaos during Trump's term, maybe an uprising civil war in the United States. international conflagrations, combined with maybe a cyber pandemic, as Klaus Schwab called it, combined with environmental catastrophes, all hitting at the same time. So, remember back a few years ago during COVID when they were trying to panic everybody, oh no, COVID's going to kill you, the government's going to save you, just wait for your vaccine. Imagine the panic that regular people who watch the fake media were feeling. Multiply that by several orders of magnitude because of the increased chaos, the increased fear of death, the terror that people will feel, and they're hoping, I think, to use that big cataclysm to then build back better with central bank digital currencies, global government, on and on and on.
Well, I just noticed, I'm noticing so much, but I noticed twice they have on the bottom left and then kind of hidden in the picture to the center bottom right next to the dollar sign, they put twice now what looks to be a cup, like a goblet, a wine glass, perhaps, some kind of crystal glass or something that has a red substance. I don't know if that's a red wine. I don't know if that's supposed to be blood spilling. I have no idea. But they went to the trouble to put it in here at least twice. So they're sending you a message there. And then I just noticed something I did not fully see yesterday. Now, I did see over the cross swords, under the cross swords, you see a chart. And I was assuming that was maybe a chart of, say, the stock market. But now that I look at it more, I see on top of the chart, it looks like we have money featuring Abraham Lincoln, which obviously then must mean that chart symbolizes the value of the dollar, and which again makes you wonder if it's telling us in 2026 there's going to be a dollar collapse coming to America.
Yeah, and I think that is definitely in the cards, combined with various collapses in various markets, real estate, stock, and I think Christians need to be in prayer about this. Christians need to be in the Word of God about this. Christians need to remember that God commanded us not to be fearful. Don't fear those who can kill the body. Fear Him who can kill the body and soul in hell. And we just need to always keep that in mind. Our hope is not in princes. Our hope is in the Lord. But we need to be prudent. Proverbs actually tells us that the wise man sees danger coming and prepares himself. The simple or the foolish keep on going. So now would be a good time to prepare, not just for yourself and for your family, but also for your neighbors so that you can love on them and minister to them and share the truth of Jesus Christ with them when times get tough, which I suspect they will.
And I would also add to that, and that's very well said, people need to be thinking about how they can help the seniors in their church, the senior citizens, the widow, the single mother with children. I harp on that an awful lot because there are some folks that have found themselves in situations that are of no consequence of their own. There's just hard times, or a spouse dies, or a husband walks off. And we need to be thinking about, have we made provision for these folks as well? And I think that's a biblical mandate. If they have family, the family's supposed to care for them. If not, then we, the New Testament church, need to step up. I'll finally say this about this. I don't know what all the pills mean, but the pills are spread all over this map. Everywhere you look, you see the pills, I don't know what they're saying is coming, that we would all need pills, or if they're talking about drug war. I have no idea. But boy, they really, between the syringes and the pills, they're sending a serious message there. Closing comment?
Yeah, I hope people will get up to speed, get educated, get informed, be in your Bible. Check out thenewamerican.com for more of our climate coverage. We'll be here until tomorrow, God willing. And, stay strong in the Lord.
Amen. Well, libertysentinel.org is also his website. He writes at the New American, and then libertysentinel.org. Alex, thank you. Be safe, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Brandon. Appreciate it. God bless.
Alex Newman checking in, folks, from COP30 in Brazil. What are your thoughts on this, folks? What do you see in this world ahead 2026? Why do you think the globalists like to tell us these things? Remember, they told us all the way back in 1988. Back in 1988, they had a graphic, which he mentioned, and we've shown on the air so many times, of a dollar. The dollar's burning, the currency of the world burning, and a phoenix rising out of the ashes for a world currency. What do you make of all this? 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. 1-800-347-9829.
We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com.
All right, 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions on anything we've covered here. Make your comments quick and pithy, and we'll roll through as many as we can. 1-800-347-9829. Yes, I do. Woo, I was like, I thought I did, then I thought I didn't, but I do. I see Dick from Maryland calling because I always like to hear what he has to say. I'm going to go to him first. Line 4. Dick, welcome back to the broadcast. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I hear you describe this beautifully. All I can think of is year one of tribulation. 2026 tribulation. Is that what that graphic is telling us?
Well, that's a great question. If that's the case, and I hold to my eschatology, then we're out of here soon. So yes, I would I would wish for that because I want to get out of here. How about you?
Oh yeah, and I guess again, this is the remarkableness of this program. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and I'd be curious if anybody else thinks this might be tribulation.
That's a very interesting, wars, rumors of wars, plagues, pestilence. Think about that, Dick. You're seeing maybe some kind of plague because you got pills and shots everywhere. You got tanks and missiles. So you got wars, rumors of wars, plagues. You got ice melting. I don't know what they're trying to symbolize there. A water crisis. Famine, I don't know. But I do see today that even Tehran is saying they may have to, Iran's saying they may have to move their capital because they don't have water.
What about AI? What about artificial intelligence? Is there anything on that picture that relates to the B system? We know the B system is in China. We know that Peter Thiel had something to do with that, and we understand Trump is promoting Palantir. Is there anything in that picture that might be related to the B system?
Well, we do see robots, and they're carrying boxes. We see several robots carrying boxes, which means they have to be operated by AI. We see those little robot dogs, 2 of the robot dogs next to tanks. So that means they're out on the battlefield fighting the battle. That requires AI. So yeah.
Well, I think the other key thing is AI, and the Palantir in particular is clearly in the picture in terms of all the hotspots. We're not going to have Gaza happening without Palantir dropped, in my opinion. Palantir will be used. Again, Tony Blair is an AI digital guy. Erdogan already has software like Palantir. So we're going to end up, in my opinion, in 2026 with Gaza, convincing people and showing them that they can define pre-crime, which is what they claim, and therefore it'll be okay if the Palestinians hang around. They'll somehow use Palantir to control the Middle East, and then they'll roll that out to the other hotspots of the world.
You know what else I'm noticing here, Dick, is that I want to go back to the graphic of what I thought yesterday was the stock market. But now I think that is a chart of the dollar crashing because you see the money on it with Lincoln. But then coming off of that, I'm just now noticing, coming off of that is a bunch of dollars spilling down. Bunch of dollars spilling down off that chart all over the globe, and you have Donald Trump standing right there to the right of the dollar chart collapse. And on the left, you see what looks like Xi Jinping. And I don't know who the other characters are, if that's Benjamin Netanyahu, who the other ones are. But you see Xi Jinping on the left side of the graph of the dollar collapse, and Donald Trump on the right side. You then see the dollars collapsing and then spilling all over the globe on the bottom half of the globe. So makes you wonder if they're planning, and the dollar signs are in red, like almost dripping with blood. I don't know if they're planning a dollar collapse, but that would seem, again, why they're bringing in Palantir in these groups so quickly, and they're talking about CBDCs and going to the new system so fast. Closing comment?
Yeah, you're the only place that I've learned from between you and Patrick Wood about Islamic finance, a finance system that's not based on debt. That was news to me, and I think that whole notion, by the way, in addition to the graph you're looking at, you also had the doomsday clock up. So I think you're doing a really good job. If anybody wants to pay attention, a lot's going on, and I got to think 2026 might be the first year of tribulation.
Wow. Great call as always. We always appreciate when you call in. Let's go to Rebecca, line 1. Hello, Rebecca. Thanks for calling in.
Hi. You already mentioned Trump and Xi Jinping. The one next to Xi Jinping is he looks angry. The one behind Donald Trump, and Trump with the tie, looks like he's running, but he looks like he wants to hit him. His arms up in the air. He kind of looks like an Indian. I don't know.
Oh, yes, that's right behind Trump. That looks like the leader of India. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then that blonde, is that supposed to be Bondi? Is she running? I don't know. But why besides that part, I called because you mentioned that fist. But remember, I looked at Trump's picture after that assassination attempt where his fist went up in the air and then that flag was behind it. Is that symbolic of that instead?
Well, why has he got a handcuff on? Are they implying it they're going to see Trump arrested?
Well, is that what he looks like? He looks like he's walking on a tightrope, and I don't know what I thought those blue papers all over the place were dollar bills,
I think they are. I think they are dollar bills. But so you wonder if you're going to be seeing arrest warrants for not only Benjamin Netanyahu, but President Trump. And of course, again, this is part of the chaos the UN loves. You already have the mayor elect of New York saying that he would see that Netanyahu was arrested if he came to New York. I guess he's going to the White House today to meet with Trump, the new mayor coming in, Mamdani. We'll see how that goes. But I think you're 100% right. The guy behind President Trump with his arm in the air, I think that is the leader of India, 100%. Great thoughts. Thank you so much for calling in. Let's go back to the phone lines. All right. Let's see here. We've got Mark, line 2. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Brandon. I agree with you. I think the 250th anniversary of the birthday for America would be an excellent target for the globalists to insult Trump. And feeding off the handcuff idea, spinning off the ICC, just like with you mentioned Netanyahu, maybe that would be their cherry on the Sunday to insinuate they would arrest Trump.
Well, it makes you wonder now that she's talking about the hand fist pumping of President Trump from Butler, but the handcuff around it. Yeah, that's very intriguing. Great call. I wish we could have gotten to Parisi in Wisconsin, line 4, but we ran out of time. Great calls, guys. Well, here's what I want to say. I don't want to leave you in fear. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of sound mind. And I'll tell you what, stay in your Bible, reading your Bible, listen to good Bible teaching. Today I spent the morning working, listening to a lot of hymns. So we want to understand the times, but we don't want to panic, but we do want to prepare spiritually, physically, mentally. And you know what? Pray. Even so, Lord Jesus, quickly come. Stay tuned for Crosstalk with Jim Schneider. Take care. And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and you here on Worldview Tube. Let's see. I don't know what this is about. I don't even know how this really happened. But here is Israel War Room is saying that today, anti-Semites stage a horrifying anti-Semitic trop-filled Friendsgiving dinner, as it's called, inside Washington, D.C.'s Union Station. This blatant promotion of blood libel and Hamas propaganda must be condemned. And how would you get in there into the main floor of the Union Station right next to the U.S. Capitol and set up a table? But it's a table with a tablecloth with the flag of Israel, what it is. And the people sitting behind it include what looks like Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't know if the other guy there, who that other guy is supposed to be, but they're eating flesh. It looks as though that's got to be Marco Rubio is what it looks like there. They're eating what looks to be baby parts. Yeah, and they're wiping their hands on white napkins. Their hands are filled with blood. I mean, this is what if you don't know what this goes back to is the idea that the Jews were somehow taking the blood from babies. It's complete anti-Semitic propaganda garbage. And I guess they have a menu: Israel's friendship dinner, starter, like the appetizers, Gaza's children's limbs. The main course, stolen organs. Dessert, illegally harvested skin. And the drink, Gaza spilled blood. And this is, again, all blaming it on Israel. And it got into Union Station. Now, again, I don't know how you could do that. I mean, it took time to set this up. They even put down plastic on the floor so as not to get any of these props spilled on the floor. So did they get a permit? Did they get a permit to be able to set this up? This is not something you just, let's bring in a table and set this up and a big sign with an easel. So I'm assuming they must have had a permit and had permission to come in there and do that. Wow. Well, I'm going to see if I can find out more about that tonight for Brandon House Live. What else do we have? Let's see here. And I want to go back to that picture in Brazil. The jaguar, I guess, with horns, fangs, demonic-looking creature. It almost looks like one of the beasts, does it not? Does it not look like a combination from the dream of Daniel? Or something maybe out of Revelation? The beast system? I don't know, but it's sure demonic looking. And it's got its arms wrapped around the globe, the beast. Again, is this something prophetic almost in implications and programming? Because again, coming from the demonic world, Satan knows what's coming. He is going to empower the beast. At some point, he will indwell the beast, the Antichrist. But it's some kind of beast who's globally powerful, and he has his arms wrapped around the globe. Is this their announcing of the coming of the beast, the Antichrist? I don't know. But boy, these people are surely demonically energized, are they not? Demonically energized, without a doubt. Well, again, I'm not here to cause you to be afraid. I'm here to alert you, to inform you, to have you be vigilant. This is a spiritual battle. And I'll tell you something, the more I study the Bible, the more I'm okay with seeing this, understanding it. Not that I agree with it, not that I'm happy about it, but I don't have any fear. Zero. I have zero fear. And the more I study the Bible, the more I find that to be this case. So I have a wonderful job. I get to talk to you guys every day. I get to produce music, which we've done over the years, releasing more here from our last concert of hymns. We have a brand new hymn channel, by the way. worldviewtube.com/hymns. worldviewtube.com/hymns. Put an S on the end of that. We do a Bible study every Sunday night, our church service. This Sunday night, I'll be opening the Bible. We'll be going to Romans chapter 11. So stay in the Word, keep studying the Bible, listening to great God-honoring music, and you can then digest all of this and have understanding and not be afraid. Remember, there's a special blessing that comes to those who seek to understand the last book of the Bible. There's 7 blessings in total in that book. But I look at this, I'm not afraid, but I am vigilant. And I'll tell you what, you better be sharing the true gospel with all your family and friends. Because if it's this bad right now, This is nothing compared to what's coming in the tribulation. You do not want them going through that. Not to mention the eternal wrath of God. Take care.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan, and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Policies are a key driver of the disorder we see on city streets all over America. Catch and release system allows criminals to keep going back out onto the street and reoffending. What this executive order does, it charges your attorney general with identifying jurisdictions all over the country that have cashless bail policies, and then it withholds or revokes federal funds and grants that are flowing to those jurisdictions to ensure that we're only supporting the people who have reasonable common sense policies around crime.
So what area does it cover?
Potentially anywhere that has a cashless bail policy. So some of the largest cities, some of the most left-wing states in America
Almost
have adopted.
all of them, right?
Illinois would be a great example of that, sir.
Oh, they have a great cashless bail. You don't even have to go to court sometimes. No, Illinois, I love that state. It's a great state, but it's run so badly by Pritzker. They threw him out of the family business and he becomes governor. Now he wants to run for president. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, we'll sign right here, right?
Sir.
So important. And this isn't Republican, Democrat. This is, and by the way, most Democrats agree with us. But this is just, we got to bring our country back. Okay? That's a big one.
Also on the issue of cashless bail, sir, this is a D.C. specific executive order in addition to the measures that were.
Welcome back to Truth Thursday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, no cash bail policies equal crime disaster nationwide, and that is why President Trump's recent executive order calling for the end of no cash bail is a great development. But as with all of his executive orders, folks, legislation has to follow at the state and federal levels in order to make the changes permanent that need to be made. The issue received renewed attention recently by the horrific murder of Irina Zarutska, a Ukrainian refugee, by DeCarlos Brown Jr. Brown was free at the time of the attack, released on a written promise to appear in court despite his long history of violence and mental illness. So my guest today to discuss this critically important issue is Texas bail attorney Ken Good. Ken received his law degree from Texas Tech School of Law, where he was a member of the Texas Tech Law Review. Mr. Good has argued cases before the Supreme Court of Texas and the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, along with numerous other courts of appeals, including the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. He's the author of Goods on Bail, a practice guide created for the bail industry professionals, and is a board member of the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. In addition, he's written numerous articles on the subject of bail reform, including What Successful Bail Reform Looks Like. That's the title. Ken, welcome to the Rob Maness Show. I know you're traveling, so hopefully we got you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on and spending this hour with us. I've been wanting to get an expert on this area on the show for quite a while. Can you just educate the audience a little bit on what is a real bail system supposed to look like? Because I think the average citizen doesn't really know anymore based on all of the crazy policies we have in place.
Well, you know what bail is intended to do, or what its job is, to get people to come to court. And so, the principle of bail is, what assurance are you going to give to the court that you're going to return to answer the criminal charges that you've been charged with? This politicalization of our criminal justice system has caused us to try, as an experiment, some simple release mechanisms. The name changes wherever you live in different states, and I think Trump's calling them cashless bail. It's just a promise. You're agreeing to promise to come to court, and the reformers say, well, everybody wants to come to court and resolve their cases. But we've learned very quickly that's not true. All these experiments have high failure to appear rates. A high failure to appear rate comes with backlogs, because you can't go forward with the criminal case if the defendant's not there. Backlogs put pressure on courts to dismiss cases, and when you dismiss cases so that the system doesn't collapse, the criminals see that as a green light to commit more crime. And that's really what we have going on across our country in our urban areas. We're trying these experiments on cashless bail that do not work and carry with them high failure to appear rates, and that's what's causing all these problems, or a lot of these problems in our urban cities, because they're dismissing cases, and criminals see that as just a right to do more damage to the public.
Yeah, absolutely. We used to have some common sense in this country, but I'm seeing what I think I see anecdotally is that these urban areas that have these policies are just disregarding whether somebody is a violent criminal or not, even a repeat violent criminal, from what we've seen happen in this country. The president's EO that he signed outside of the D.C. executive order, you've had a chance to take a look at that, I'm sure. What are your thoughts on whether they hit the right items to be effective?
Well, I think one of the issues with Trump is either hate him or you love him. And so anything Trump does carries with it the hate and the love. I think Trump's doing the right thing. I think a lot of times, with the criticism against Trump, he's trying to do what he thinks is right. And I think this does hit the right note. It is putting a spotlight. If we're going to talk about old time politics, as the president, he's putting his bully pit, his spotlight on an issue, and the issue is these cashless bail policies and simple release policies that we're seeing in our urban areas. So I think from that standpoint, I think he's hit the right note, and I think the carrot and the stick approach is correct. I just think that the problem I see is whenever Trump highlights something, it comes with a lot of hatred. So in the blue states who already hate Trump, then suddenly they're going to hate cashless bail, even though they're probably already using it. So they're not ever, as long as Trump's in office, they're not going to admit it's not working, even though it's clearly not. And I think the DC model, when he, used law enforcement and flooded DC, shows you we know what to do. We know how to correct the crime problem. It's just now we've got this problem with the far left will not acknowledge that they can't, because if they admit that what they've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years has not been working, and that we can fix it, they're just refusing for the sake of politics, then that would hurt them substantially at the ballot box. So they'll not admit that, and so it just becomes even more politically charged of an issue.
Yeah, and it wasn't lost on me. He had to sign a separate executive order for the District of Columbia because the federal government, I don't know if many people know this or not, they have ultimate authority over the district's laws, even though they have a mayor and a city council. That's all but because it's been authorized by Congress to do that. And the president has vast powers there where he could sign an EO and make the locals do what he wants them to do. But outside of that area, I mean, he's limited to what he can affect with his executive order. What is the demarcation line of limitations when you're talking about a city like Chicago?
Well, the executive order focuses on the carrot stick approach. We want you to enact these policies, and if you don't, then you're not going to get your federal dollars. And so he's charged the attorney general with highlighting or identifying the federal dollars that can be taken away if they refuse to limit the use of cashless bail in their jurisdiction. I mean, that's not anything new. That's an approach been used by the federal government for a long time. So I think that is the right approach when you're talking about a subject which is just state policy, because bail is run by and large by the states, because the states are they're the number one people. The states are the number one enforcer of criminal laws. I mean, the federal government does it too, but it's on a much smaller basis. So, I mean, he doesn't have the authority to tell a state to do X, but he can say there can be penalties. We can take away the benefits that we give you if you don't. We do that all the time, or the federal government does it all the time in other areas.
Yeah, it hadn't been that long since he signed that EO, Ken. But was he right that there is, and you kind of alluded to this, is there bipartisan agreement really that this system is not working? It's just they're not going to say it out loud?
Well, where we are in this whole criminal justice bail reform movement is the far left will attack anyone in the Democrat Party that doesn't spout the party line. I mean, you would get an opponent in the next primary. So when Trump says, they quietly support it, I think that's probably absolutely true, because the vocal left will not allow a Democrat to publicly say. I mean, that's why you're not seeing the inner city say, well, this hasn't worked, so we need to try something else, because they're being held in line by the threat of the far left. And I don't see that changing until we have one more national election where the Democrats kind of get beat on the issue of criminal justice, crime, public safety. And so we need one more election cycle where they get punished for their soft on crime policies. And I think that'll change.
Is that realistic that we could expect that in a place like Chicago or New York City? I mean, Mondami just won there basically saying he was going to defund the police a year ago.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, I agree with you. I mean, is it going to be hard? Yes, I think it can be done. I think the Mondami is a good example of, this election, midterms, the people who are most engaged come out, and so that's usually the party not in power. And so I think you could explain the Mondami thing. I mean, what I think the Mondami signifies is the civil war between the far left and the non-far left of the Democrat Party. I mean, I think he's a perfect example of the fight. I mean, look at Schumer. He didn't endorse him. And look at Jeffries. Jeffries waited till the last minute to endorse him. So I think Mamdani signifies a bigger issue in the Democrat Party. And also, I'm a little bit I think time will tell. But Mamdani, there were some reports right before the election that Soros had and his groups had given him a lot of money right before the election. I think we're seeing the Soros groups change from supporting DAs and target some mayors and thinking that they can influence criminal justice policy that way. Now with Mamdani being elected, also the mayor of Seattle, they had the same talking points. And so those talking points are very similar to what Harris used in the presidential election. So there's too much similarity. And I've already been saying for a while that the National Party has outsourced criminal justice bail reform policy to these activist groups. And the reason why I say that is because activist groups will never admit they're wrong. They just need more time. Politicians should listen to the activist groups, but then try it. And if it doesn't work, then try something else. But when you outsource it to these activists, I mean, especially the ones that we have on the far left, they'll never admit they're wrong. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. And time will tell us on the Mamdani thing and on the Seattle mayor, because if that's what it is, if they're just repeating what they did with the DAs, those have a very short shelf life. None of the soft on crime DAs has survived 2 elections. And when they get defeated, they get defeated with a law and order DA. So if that's what blows up on their face again, and this time, if they're doing it, it blows up on their face again, this time with the mayors, it'll be a similar result.
Yeah, hopefully that will blow up in their faces again. But I tell you what, I don't feel sorry for the people of New York because they just voted for this guy. To be honest with you, I'm more afraid of what the refugees are where they're going to go. And more concerned
I mean, I've had a lot of friends tell me that. I don't feel sorry for New York. They voted for this, but this is not in their best interest.
No, it's not.
And he's just making promises to give them stuff for free that he doesn't even have the power to give them. He's giving them free bus rides. That's not his decision. He's going to tax the rich. That's not his decision. And the New York legislature will not do that tax increase because they're all up for election next year. So he's going to potentially crash and burn pretty quickly. But we'll wait and see. Illinois is a good example. When you go to Chicago, I could make a really good argument that the politicians in Chicago have turned over that city to gangs. And so, what would they do differently if they were not, under the control of the gangs than what they're currently doing? So if it's under the control of the gangs, I don't know if anybody can change anything on the short term, because you're going to have a will to do stuff that would not be perceived well by a lot of people.
Absolutely. Well, we got to take a break, Ken. When we come back, we'll see a little clip about legislation. The president talking about legislation, because this has got to be followed up with legislation. I want to get your take on what needs to be in the legislation at the federal and the state level in order for this policy shift to be effective. We'll be right back. Ken Wood. Been good.
Do you appreciate all the free programming we produce here at Worldview Tube? Well, if you do, we need your partnership now. If you're already supporting us, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider doing so? We have to have a big November and December end of the year giving. Please go here right now to this website, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You can give through credit card. You can give through PayPal. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find our phone number. Simply use that phone number by leaving a voicemail for Melissa or texting her, and my wife will get back with you and help you make your contribution over the phone. We send out tax receipts with our EIN number, the first week of February of each year. We, again, have to have a very big November and December as we get ready for pushing out more Christian worldview programming for 2026. So thank you for going now to worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com.
We have other cities also that are bad, very bad. You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say. This dire public safety crisis stems directly from the abject failures of the city's local leadership. The radical left City Council adopted no cash bail. By the way, every place in the country where you have no cash bail is a disaster. That's what started the problem in New York, and they don't change it. They don't want to change it. That's what started it in Chicago. Bad politicians started it, bad leadership started it, but that was the one thing that's central, no cash bail. Somebody murders somebody and they're out on no cash bail before the day is out. We're going to end that in Chicago. We're going to change the statute. I spoke with Pam and Todd and everybody. We're going to change the statute, and I'm going to have to get the Republicans to vote because the Democrats are weak on crime, totally weak on crime. They don't know why. They want to stop because they get mugged too. But we're going to change no cash bail. We're going to change the statute and get rid of some of the other things, and we'll count on the Republicans in Congress and Senate to vote. We have the majority, so we'll vote.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube, folks, and Worldview Tube provides you a Christian worldview network. And that's why I chose to keep my show on this network, is because we try to provide that Christian worldview and shows and information that comes from our perspective. And this is Truth Thursday. My guest today is Texas bail attorney and expert, Ken Good. And Ken, the president's talking about the legislation that he has to follow up with there. What does that look like from a federal level versus what it needs to look like from a state level? Because they're two different things, right?
Well, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were going to propose, I think, a bill on this issue, I think today, to someone in the government to get, see if it would get some legs. And I think they're going to, their proposal is to kind of codify this. You're going to get rid of these cashless bail policies, or you're going to lose these grants, or this is what you have to do to keep getting these funds. I think that's when you pass it as a statute instead of a executive order, then they'd have to also pass another statute before they could change it. It wouldn't just be a new executive order. On the state level, Texas is a really good example of how they've addressed it. So they just made a list of violent offenses and said these people charged with these crimes are no longer eligible for cashless bail. And in Texas, that's called they're not eligible for a personal bond. In New York, it would be not eligible for a bail or release on no bond. And in California, it'd be not eligible for a release on zero bail. And so I think that's a good way to start it. But I think it needs to be more than just violent offenses. I mean, you need to have a strong accountability element of this. And so if you just put in a statute that said if they fail to appear for court, they're not eligible for further cashless bail, that would fix probably 80% of the problem, because we've got examples in Houston before the legislature acted where somebody was released 17 times on cashless bonds or bail, and they failed to appear each time, and they just got arrested, brought back to court, and released again. When you don't have that element of accountability, I mean, how can you expect criminals not to see that as okay to commit crime?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It impacts the viewpoint of the criminal, which drives these high recidivism rates, right? But one of the things I wanted to ask you about is how do we fight this phenomenon that's come out of this? And that is guys like Pritzker, the communist mayor in New York, and I'm assuming Mamdani will do it too, come in and go, well, no, we have these crime numbers. Our crime's down. How do we fight that propaganda twist on numbers?
That's going to be a big problem, because if you search Google, I mean, the activists have learned how to flood Google with, I call it pseudo reports, or, cooked, where they cook the books, and it's just, it's pseudoscience. If you search Google for that, you're going to find a whole bunch of studies, or what they call studies, saying crime is down, and you're seeing that from Pritzker. I actually think that's a good sign. If they are at the point where they have to deny that crime is a problem because they can't admit it, because if they admit it, they have to address it. Well, it's not going to last much longer, because it either is a problem or it's not a problem. I mean, for the last couple of years, they've been saying, don't believe your lying eyes, believe us, crime is down. And you don't have to just believe us, look at the FBI statistics. Well, and I've been saying for a while that you shouldn't be believing the FBI statistics for all these reasons. Well, last October, after I had an article published saying that, 10 days later, winky dink of all quinky dinks, the FBI statistics were updated, and suddenly they showed crime was up. Well, in the national election, from that moment on, they no longer talked about crime, because they couldn't. Because suddenly the FBI statistics were contrary to everything that they were saying. And so if you remember in the election, that's when they just started calling Trump a tyrant, Trump Hitler, because they couldn't talk about crime anymore. And so, there's a breaking point where the public just doesn't say anymore, we can't believe you. Crime is a problem. Everything says crime is a problem but you. And the only reason why you can't admit crime is not a problem is because if you do, then you will be punished for the next several elections because of what of the lies you've been saying. I think that's where we are, and it'll be interesting to see, because you can see both. They're playing for broke. I mean, everything they're doing, the Epstein stuff and everything, is to distract the public, to try to just get back control so they can continue the lie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to the video that came out, I think it was yesterday, where 6 veteran and intelligence veterans and military veterans in the Congress made a video about, your right to disobey an unlawful order, but they didn't specify any unlawful orders that have been given. It's the same type of approach, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all distraction, and it's meant to tell law enforcement, I mean, or the military, if you don't follow what